Everyone, Eric Speck here, Peer Support Director at RPH Ally. I recently had the opportunity to connect with an old friend of mine from the Pharmacist Recovery Program from a few years ago, and I want to tell you a little bit about our discussion and a few things that I've learned right after this. All right, guys, hopefully that worked okay. It was a little funky on my end. Hopefully it was just my internet. I'm also trying out my fancy new mic headset here because I noticed sometimes my audio sounds a little funky. So hopefully it's improved with this. Hopefully you guys can hear me, and hopefully I'm not ruining everything, but I think we're going to be good. So anyways, last week I reached out to an old buddy of mine from the Pharmacist Recovery Program, and I was in the program with him back in 2017. So it's been, wow, it's like 6 years really since I've talked to this guy. And we had a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was learn a little bit more about his story and his experience with the program. And I realized when I was in the program, I didn't care too much about other people's situations. I mean, I cared about how they were doing, but as far as like the details and everything, I think everybody's like that. We're so involved with just getting our careers and our lives back on track that we really don't have time or energy to know the details of every other single participant. So we talked a little bit about that. And I was surprised to learn that he was in this pharmacist recovery program for 7 years. That is literally more than twice as long as it took him to complete pharmacy school. He was in a three-year pharmacy school program, the same one I was in. And he did 3 years of pharmacy school and then 7 years in the pharmacist recovery program, which to me just seems, it doesn't seem right. You know, it seems, I don't know, I want to say to the borderline unethical. And what is the point of putting somebody in a recovery program for 7 years, twice as long as they're even in school for pharmacy for? And one reason for that, though, he was on a 5-year probation program, which is pretty standard. So usually they're going to be monitoring you for 5 years in these programs. Mine was actually 4 because I'm super nice guy and super good looking. No, just kidding, kind of. But generally it's 5 years. But for this gentleman's situation, he got in some trouble when he was in pharmacy school, actually, his final year of pharmacy school. And because of that, he wasn't allowed to take his licensing exam until all of this got sorted out. So he was in a limbo state for about 2 years until the Board of Pharmacy finally made a decision to put him on probation, which would then allow him to get his pharmacist license. One thing really interesting, you know, I asked him, well, why did it take him 2 years to go through this whole process? Generally, it's a lot faster. For me, it was a matter of months. You know, I had to wait a matter of months for this whole process to occur. And for him, they didn't care about speeding it along because he wasn't a practicing pharmacist. For myself and, you know, any other pharmacist who's been practicing and has an administrative law problem with the Board of Pharmacy or any other licensing board, they need to act pretty quickly because they have to make a case. They have to, you know, present it to the judge, and they need to basically prove their case and come out on top before they can take you out of work and put you on probation. So if I'm a licensed pharmacist and I'm working, and let's say I got in trouble for fraud, for DUI, whatever it is, they thinking, well, I could be a danger to the public. I could go on causing more harm and more damage because of the things that I did. And so they're going to be trying to get me out of that setting as fast as they can. But in order to do that, they need to go through the legal channels, take the appropriate steps in order for that to occur. So generally, the fastest it can go, in my experience, is a few months, right? Because they need to do the investigation, build a case, present it to the judge, get a verdict, and then take you out and then work on rehabilitation or whatever other steps they need to do for that person who is being disciplined. But for this gentleman, my friend back in the pharmacist recovery program, he wasn't a practicing pharmacist. So the Board of Pharmacy had zero rush to process his case. You know, he's the last one on the list because there are a lot of other people who I described earlier could be, you know, a danger to the public. So they need to work faster, get this person out of practice, and work on the remediation, the rehabilitation with that individual. But for my friend, they didn't need to do that. So he literally graduated pharmacy school and sat for nearly 2 years waiting for the board of pharmacy to get this stuff going. And I don't know if you guys know me, I'm a super nice guy. I always want to do what's right. I want to help other people, take care of other people. And I just feel so bad that this person, at the what should be the best time of his life, the highlight of his life at this point, is not able to get into the profession that he's studied so hard for, invested so much in, and is probably so excited to do because he's sitting around waiting for this administrative process with the board of pharmacy. And I feel like there should be I don't know, statute of limitations on this or something. You have 6 months to do it. If you don't do it in 6 months, then you can't do anything about it. No, I think that's a little excessive, but I just feel so bad that they literally made him wait for about 2 years and he's just sitting with nothing to do. He can't take his license exam. He can't work as a pharmacist, can't work as a pharmacy intern. And I don't know. I see it as kind of just wasting your life away. So that was very unfortunate. That was the first part. And then once he got his license and passed the exam, he was able to get a job working as a pharmacist shortly after that with restrictions and limited hours and all of that standard stuff that the board of pharmacy does. And then he was in the program for 5 years, and it's a lot. The first 3 years you're really busy. You could barely work full time because you're fulfilling all the requirements for the pharmacist recovery program. Then the final 2 years are a little bit less, but you still have to do quite a bit of work. He talked about he could have filed for like early termination of probation, but honestly, at that point, he had about a year left, and it wouldn't have been that big of a difference because he was just doing urine drug screens, a few check-ins. He said it wasn't worth it. You'd have to pay the attorney fees, and he really didn't see any point of getting early termination of his probation, so he wrote it out for an extra year. And I got a comment here. Let me see what this says. Okay, cool. Hey, Rachel, thanks for joining us. And yeah, and so from 2013 to 2020, I mean, imagine 7 years of your life going through this program, trying to get your life back on track. I think that's excessive. I think 5 years is excessive. How long does it take to get somebody so they're in a safe place where they can practice pharmacy, without being a danger to the public? I don't know. I know it's better to be safe than sorry, right? Like you wouldn't want to not spend enough time with this individual, then let them loose and have something happen. But I feel like if you're overkill, if you're doing it for too long and this person's livelihood is being diminished for so long, you could be doing more harm than good in the end, because this person is losing their morale about pharmacy. Their well-being is getting diminished in a lot of ways. And I know when I spoke to this individual, you could tell that he was very, I want to say, hurt and upset about the program and just how everything went down, which is understandable. I think this particular board of pharmacy could do a much, much better job. There are other boards of pharmacy and pharmacist recovery networks, PRNs, that are much, much better at this. So I am specifically talking about this one, which is California, if you're wondering, or if you haven't guessed. They are especially bad, and it's unfortunate. Some other states, Tennessee, for example, has a phenomenal program. And after going through the California's Pharmacist Recovery Network and learning about Tennessee's, I was like, man, I wish I could have transferred or something. Life would have been so much better. I feel like I would have got so much more out of that program. And I think it would have been a win-win-win for everybody. Win for the pharmacist, win for the pharmacy board, and then a win-win for the community. The other thing I want to hit on real quick that he mentioned is there was somebody else who got entered into the program, and this was a pharmacist, and he received a DUI. And that was it. Just one offense, got a DUI. Well, the board of pharmacy found out about it. They filed an accusation. He ended up having to enter the pharmacist recovery program and got put on probation, kind of the standard deal with these cases. When that gentleman was in the program, somebody else came in for 1 or 2 professional peer support sessions. He was just starting the process, got a DUI. He had an attorney. The attorney was fighting this case with the board of pharmacy. And again, it was the only instance, it was the first instance, that this person's ever done, and ended up getting let off with only a fine. So they had to pay, I think it was $5,000 fine, but there was no mark on the person's license. There was no probation. There was no pharmacist recovery program. And he told me that the other person who was in the program for the exact same thing, for the single DUI, He was pissed, right? Like he was on probation for, I don't know, I'm guessing 5 years, maybe it was 4. I really don't know. But imagine needing to go through all of that for a DUI, which is a serious offense. I'm not saying a DUI is anything light. Like, absolutely, don't freaking drink and drive. It's dangerous. You kill yourself or somebody else. But first offense in the program, somebody else comes in with the same thing and basically gets let off. And I would have been just as mad as this gentleman was. And I just think about that, how can we do a better job of taking care of pharmacists who are struggling, whether it's, following a DUI, substance use disorder, anything else. I think we need to do a much better job of rehabilitating these pharmacists, taking care of them and getting them back to practice in a safe manner. That's one reason why I joined RPH Ally and started this channel, is because I don't feel like there's a lot of people up to bat for the pharmacist in these situations. You're battling the Board of Pharmacy, which is a huge government agency. They have all the power. They make all the rules. And you're just little old me or little old you, pharmacist, with hardly any resources. And it's like David trying to battle Goliath, except for you're not going to have the same outcome as they did in that situation. You're going to get squashed the harder you try to fight. But who knows? The other guy fought and he got off with just a fine. So what I would tell somebody is, if they find themselves in a situation, and hopefully you don't, pray to God you don't, but if you find yourself making a poor choice, having an accusation served against you by the Board of Pharmacy, they're asking you to go to the pharmacist recovery program, put you on probation, definitely get an attorney. And don't just talk to one attorney, talk to multiple attorneys. One thing I've learned is some attorneys are just very much don't want to rock the boat. They get you into the program, they protect your license, but they don't want to be real aggressive with it for whatever reason. Maybe to preserve their relationship with the licensing board. That's my guess. I don't think these people are necessarily don't want to work hard for you, but I think that there's something else going on there. But then there are some other attorneys who they don't care. They're going to fight for you as hard as they freaking can, and in a way be a much better attorney for you than somebody else. So definitely, if you find yourself in this situation, you're going to need to get an administrative law attorney for your pharmacist license, and call around, ask questions. If it ever happens to you and you want to know, well, what to expect, what kind of questions should you ask, what are your options, definitely feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on RPH Ally, of course, the peer support channel. And as you can tell, I've known a lot of people in this program, heard a lot of stories, and give you some good suggestions, some advice, some wisdom about the best way to proceed in these situations. Because ultimately, of course, I'm Eric. I want the best for you because you do matter a lot to me, and nobody should have to go through, terrible things for bad decisions they make. Yeah, it's going to happen. You're going to have to go through some stuff, but let's just get you the right amount that's going to make you the best person you can be going forward, and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then we're going to be golden. We don't need to get excessive on this. We just need to do what's right to get you back on track, get your career back on track, get your life back on track, and making sure you don't make those mistakes again, so you could enjoy being a pharmacist for a very, very long time. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.